Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Propagandacast with me, Imperial Dane. Today I have for you a 2 versus 2. Yes, indeed, you heard right, a 2 versus 2 on rails and metals. Yes, indeed, it is rails and metals, with the old empty barn watching over one victory point, and that very, very well placed house watching over the other 2 victory points, and quite a bit of the fuel on the map as well. So this point is a rather heavily contested area. Generally tends to be this one, also a bit. This one also tends to be, but not quite as heavily as this bit. Usually this sort of a secondary battlefield where the less able players will go, while usually the much stronger players will be heading right here to fight it out rather violently. And who shall be fighting each other? Well, in the northern half we are seeing Man 4857 and Motofox 95 of the 2nd Armored Division, ready to lead the day for the American forces. And who shall be opposing them? It shall be Vexial and Slaithium of the 2nd Panzer Division opposing the 2nd Armored Division. Shall be interesting to see how this works out, as the 2 forces shall be clashing right here in this area. Used to be a supply line, but clearly that's been bombed out, so that's not going to be the case at the moment. Although I suppose if the Germans were to be able to retake it, they might be able to restore supply lines with trains or something else. In fact, let's get straight to it, And we are seeing engineers marching out from the northern part. We are seeing a barracks being set up and a second barracks. No, that one kablooey. Apparently the engineers decided not to set it up. Second engineer team on the way from Man, and we are seeing from the 2nd Panzer Division 2 Wehrmacht quarters going up. Engineer team number 2 ready, barracks almost up, and looks like, yes, we are going to see a second barracks up here. So barracks versus Wehrmacht quarters. Shall be interesting to see how this goes off, and Man forces are advancing towards this building, perhaps hoping to occupy it and deny it for any MGs. Certainly not a bad idea. Of course, it is going to deny him any sort of early resources, and of course going to leave that to Mr. Motofox to actually handle. So it's a bit of a trade-off there, but the engineers are hiding in the building with their grease guns, and the barracks is ready. Infantry on the way, I wager, and infantry on the way from Motofox. Pioneers marching out here in the south, although Vexial's forces are going straight towards the east, trying to secure this fuel point and of course the victory point. Granted, they are going to have a bit of a problem securing this area since this building is occupied, and more engineers on the way, possibly some riflemen very soon as well. Volksgrenadiers hitting the field, and looks like Slaithium is up to his old tricks, relying on support units. Of course, we'll have to see if he has learned some new tricks. But so far, MG42 riflemen in the north. Engineers as well, alongside some more engineers, securing territory, which doesn't really seem to be the priority of Man, who rather seems to be denying the Wehrmacht forces. And there we go, Volksgrenadiers attacking the house, hoping to get those engineers to vacate it for the fatherland and put in some MGs of their own. Looks like Slaithium is wanting to secure this central house with the MG. Not entirely sure why. There's nothing really there. It seems to be an awfully rear position, and rather already designates that Slaithium is going to play rather passively. And again, in a 2 versus 2 game, you do not want to play passively. You do not want a teammate that plays passively, because that means either you or him will be targeted out by some more aggressive opponents, and then you're in a large amount of trouble, because someone decided he wanted it to take it a bit easy. He didn't want to strain himself too much. And of course, that's sort of the mentality you can get with team games. That is, you sort of have the idea that, oh right, I can just relax, I have a teammate who will handle everything, and I'll just sort of provide moral support. And that's a very wrong assumption to make, and I'm afraid it sort of increases as more players are added, which is also rather the reason why I don't show 3 versus 3 and 4 versus 4s, as you get an awful lot of those types that are really laid back and not really doing anything. And really here, Slaithium pushed back, well, not really doing much, and now Vexial's Volksgrenadiers team number 2 trying to hold the line, but the riflemen are pushing onwards, and of course there's absolutely no help from Slaithium to actually try and turn the tide, since his MG42 is standing there doing absolutely bollocks, and now he's getting a sniper out who's not really going to be doing much at all either at the moment, though getting some Volksgrenadiers. So looks like he is getting something into his head. Question is though, is what? Riflemen hanging about in the north, securing the other victory points. In fact, looks like the Americans are securing this entire area, having forced back the entire 2nd Panzer Division's forces. Volksgrenadiers marching out once more. Pioneers are ready to support as well, although an MG42 would not go amiss. And there we go, MG42 heavy machine gun team, ready to support the less able infantry of the 2nd Panzer Division. Not quite Panzer Grenadiers. Sniper firing away at some riflemen, but he's not really going to do much. And this MG42, again, I really don't like the positioning of it there. And I really don't like this rather passive demeanor that Slaithium is currently taking. But there we go, Volksgrenadiers marching in. And from the south also, with MG42 support. A strong assault right there. And the riflemen being caught out in the open. They are not going to do well. In fact, the other team trying to flank are getting focused down by the Volksgrenadiers. Very well job done there. And looks like something was lost, although not entirely sure what. Could have probably been a rifle team, I suppose. In which case, good job there for Slaithium, managing to short something. But looks like Motofox has gone for a weapon support center, getting some heavy machine guns to really put down some heavy fire. That's going to be quite a bit of help. While it looks like Man is pulling back to all positions, Slaithium taking up positions in the south, preventing anyone from getting in there. 30 caliber Browning, ready to fire away at the German forces right there. Although he is a bit exposed, standing on the wrong side of the light cover. Again, some types of light cover, like for example fences, are directional, other like bushes are not. Basically, again, the general rule of thumb is, I suppose, is thing of how it will go in reality. If the key is you actually have to stand on something, behind something, then it works like that. Shrubbery on the other hand, it's not really much of a wall, that's basically more just hiding you in general all directions, so of course you can stand in it. But again, fences, walls, all sorts of that bits, you actually need to stand on the right side, or otherwise you're getting shot. And looks like this MG42 is in the west, utterly unsupported. Riflemen moving in here towards the south, getting stopped by that MG42 in the house. Sniper continuing, 6 kills so far. Volksgrenadiers pushing onwards in the south with an MG42 in support, and some pioneers securing the eastern bit. And looks like we are seeing a large American assault force moving in, BARs equipped. Sniper forced to run the gauntlet, but makes it out there quite nicely. And another MG on the way for the American forces, Motofox. Although he is lacking an infantry team, a mortar would actually be a rather nice thing to have here to bombard Vexial's positions. But why he doesn't go for it is beyond me, or why he, for example, doesn't send some troops into this building to fire away with some of those BARs in quite nice cover. Again, getting into buildings is not a bad idea, but there we go. Flamethrowers though might be able to scorch directly into the trenches, but no. And now looks like this Wehrmacht force is getting surrounded. American riflemen hitting a mine. Volksgrenadiers moving in, but getting scorched might be the loss of the entire Volksgrenadier team, but no. And these chaps are running the gauntlet, and they do manage to get out of there once more. This is in the hands of the Americans, and we are seeing a medic bunker up for Vexial. Already one wounded Volksgrenadier is getting pulled out of there by the German Sanitäter. In the meanwhile, in the west, we are seeing Slaithium's Volksgrenadiers and MG42 holding a bit here, and this MG42 is still proving to be quite a nuisance, though. So in the long run, not so bad. But then again, the reason it's now becoming useful again is there's absolutely nothing there, and in fact, the Americans are holding most of the territory. So again, I have to sort of question the decision, or at least I feel compelled to do so. We are seeing a creek barracks coming up here, and there's a dual creek barracks pack on the way, rather expecting some armor, but then again we are seeing a barracks, BARs, and a weapon support center, and grenades. So again, I don't think we are going to see some armor right away for the Americans. Although against Slaithium it would have quite the effect, since it doesn't really have much to hold it back. And a mortar team arriving. German forces pushing again. Here, the bunker having taken some light damage, but not enough. Riflemen with BARs are holding the line, and looks like Motofox has put up his own machine gun right there. Going to be able to provide some fire support for Man's forces there. Good job. Supply yard up and coming, and grenades almost ready for Motofox, and then again he's lacking infantry, so the effectiveness of that grenade upgrade is questionable at the very least. But there we go, more riflemen. Also rather interesting to note, none of those have in fact gotten a medic station, which would actually be really good since there were many riflemen. Of course, many riflemen meaning many wounded, many things for medics to pick up. So again, would be a rather nice thing there. And a mortar opening up, sniper as well. Looks like this heavy machine gun is quick to vacate the premises as German mortar fire lands in, and the German snipers once more forced retreat. Rifleman picks up a BAR but is quickly forced on the retreat. Slaithium ever slowly pushing through and getting apparently a third MG42. Again, an American mortar really could make some wonders there. Volksgrenadiers pushing through with some support, and now a second mortar up, this time from Vexial. Lots of light artillery support apparently for the Germans, and these Volksgrenadiers are getting torn apart. But again, not a bad idea to get mortars, although I really don't think that Slaithium should be getting so many MG42s. Volksgrenadiers being stopped right here by another heavy machine gun. But there seems to be some sort of lack in actual weapons that actually push it through for Americans. They seem to be bogged down a bit, in fact. Although that supplier might signal some armor or vehicles soon to rather push the tide. Volksgrenadiers pushing forwards. German medics trying to get up as many wounded as possible, but getting shot in the process as well. And right here, still nothing. Slaithium very slowly pushing forwards. Apparently now calling upon the 17th SS to provide with some Panzer Grenadiers of their own, or some Stormtroopers, as you might call them as well. Sturmtruppen. And looks like another supply yard is up for the Americans. That's going to help with any manpower upkeep. And the MG right there getting blown to bits. And the Stormtroopers are slowly advancing on this heavy machine gun, which has now been upgraded to a forward barracks as well. The empty barn is not so empty now. And a bundle grenade flying through the windows and killing two of the gunners, but the last one is still alive. And those Stormtroopers are awfully exposed right there out in the open against that heavy machine gun. And a Stormtrooper is killed, oh dear, but then again, only one more shot and that heavy machine gun is turned to paste. Riflemen though moving in from the south, and of course a grenade thrown at the Stormtroopers. Oh dear, not retreated in time. One is killed. That was rather unfortunate, but the last two Stormtroopers are able to retreat and vacate the premises. Further Stormtroopers arriving. Apparently now the 2nd Panzer Division really getting some support from the 17th SS. Panzer Grenadiers marching in. Of the SS type, the most fanatical, the most daring, the most cocksure. And Motorpool on the way from Motofox. Nothing from man. But Riflemen and Rangers are leading the charge. Rangers with Thompson submachine guns will be able to tear through those Grenadiers. Still, why no medic station is a bit of an interesting move there. Flamethrowers though scorching this bunker, and I do suspect that the German commander, yes indeed we are seeing for the fatherland, up, and mortar rounds hitting his own troops. Vexial is probably a bit vexed at the mortar commander, but nonetheless, he has gone defensive, so one has gone defensive, the other has gone blitzkrieg, although considering Slaithium's rather passive demeanor, it's a bit funny he is going for the blitzkrieg, the rather aggressive, while Vexial, who has been more aggressive, is now going for defensive. Nonetheless, not bad. Grenadiers and Volksgrenadiers pushing onwards. The medic bunker still standing despite having taken quite a bit of damage, despite having been turned into a tiny little oven, considering the flamethrowers have been scorching it for so long. Riflemen holding the line with the BARs, but troops from Slaithium and Vexial are pushing onwards, while Stormtroopers are pushing through in the west. No, it is a sniper, and looks like another heavy machine gun is coming out there, but no vehicles out from Motofox. No motors for Moto. In the meanwhile, Vexial and Slaithium's combined forces has pushed through in the east once more, rather again shifting back and forth right here. In fact, let's go have a look at man a bit. Of course, he's going for infantry, which of course means Rangers, and more Rangers with Thompson submachine guns. The Thompson submachine gun being a slightly old machine gun, having sent for already some years, but it was quite effective. It also had a drum magazine, but that was not really given for the American troops. No, not sure why. Could have been some maintenance issues. And looks like we are seeing a supply yard upgrade, so no armor out from man. He's apparently going to go rather heavy on the infantry. Let the Rangers lead the way and bust a hole in the German defensive lines. still holding most of the map and most of the victory points. But Motofox does seem to be a bit unable to really land any decisive punches, and stormtroopers, now the veterans you want, are pushing through in the west once more, coming under fire from riflemen with BARs. We're probably going to see a bundle grenade flying right into that trench. There we go, but the riflemen are quick to get out of there, so that's 50 munitions out the window and into the trench. Riflemen opening fire, and if they were to throw a grenade themselves, my goodness, are pressing fire, penning down the stormtroopers. The second team managed to get into the trench, but a grenade flies in there, killing one stormtrooper, and the rest are looking not too well. American riflemen standing out here in the north, not pushing onwards, and the American assault pushing through here in the south. Rangers and engineers with flamethrowers circumventing the barbed wire emplacement, but the engineers are getting torn apart and the Rangers are suppressed as well. Lots of heavy machine guns really stopping this entire assault dead, with no weapon support teams, no howitzers and no mortars to really help. We are seeing an armored car arriving from Motofox, and these riflemen are doing some very nasty things to these Volksgrenadiers. But looks like Mr. Mann's assault in the east has failed quite spectacularly, and once more these stormtroopers are not looking good, getting killed in rather large numbers and forced into a full retreat.
Enemy unit down.
And what is this? A pack on the move as well, perhaps expecting some sort of vehicles or armor to arrive now. Not a bad assumption, considering we do have an M8 armored car out, but that is it, and really not much luck for Man to push through here in the east despite Rangers and Riflemen. He is lacking the firepower to really blast a hole in the defenses and really quickly overcome things. Rangers charging in, full of gusto and machismo, and looks like these pioneers are standing right in the middle of it. And flamethrower scorching the Rangers, but they are torn apart by submachine gun fire. The MG-42 nearby though helping, suppressing the Rangers. The Rangers are taking quite a bit of damage. Riflemen moving in, but are also suppressed. Lots of heavy machine gun fire right here. In fact, we are seeing 3 heavy machine guns in a rather heavy, in-depth defense. First 2 here, and then we have a second one ready to provide covering fire if the first line is pierced. That's certainly going to be quite an excellent defensive tactic. And meanwhile, the west is still in the hands of the Americans. Apparently, Slaithium sending most of his units towards the east. Stormtroopers pushing in the west, but without any support.
Front shifting. Krauts are grabbing territory from us.
But that Stu 42 might soon put a change to that. In the meanwhile, Man is looking to be making another charge and getting more supply and upgrades, but still nothing further for his infantry. No support, no mortars to provide smoke cover, no mortars to bombard the heavy machine guns or artillery to do the same. Not entirely sure I find that encouraging. Grenadiers and Volksgrenadiers holding the line as Rangers charge in, getting suppressed once more. And a grenade doing quite a bit of damage to these Volksgrenadiers, killing 4, and looks like only 1 shot, and this last one might go down as well, but no. The Volksgrenadier team is safe, and the Rangers charge ahead, might be dropping a grenade right into that window. Kill that MG-42 team, have done well, but of course, getting torn apart again. Thing to note, troops that are firing up while sprinting will be easy to hit against heavy machine guns. Why is that? Well, because when a unit is suppressed, it also gets some slight advantages. It's harder to hit, so heavy machine guns can't pass through quite as quickly. But then again, if you ignore it, then your troops will be more easily killed by MG-42s or any other heavy machine gun. So be careful with that. When standing in front of it, it can bite you in the ass. And grenade flying in, but missing and doing absolutely no damage. That can happen. Looks like the stormtroopers are once more leading the charge. No cloaking business here. Machine gun emplacement up for Motofox though. And looks like the Stu 42 is also leading the charge. Blasting away against these riflemen. Fearing them, and perhaps they are sticky bombs. But looks like they do not have anyone. And there are no anti-tank guns to actually hold it back, really. Stormtroopers now with Panzer tracks getting suppressed by the machine gun emplacement. Getting no support from the Stu 42. And once more, Man's assault in the east has utterly fallen apart without any decent support. His men are just getting brutally slaughtered, senselessly and without mercy. Riflemen charging it, getting a sticky bomb off on the Stu 42, which does have veterans 1, which does mean it won't take as much damage. Good job there, Slaithium. Stormtroopers though are getting pinned down, and why isn't sending in that Stu 42 to deal with that machine gun emplacement is a bit of an interesting question. Those stormtroopers are basically just getting torn apart in the open and in the hedges. Trying to knock it out with a Panzer 6, but they're really not having much luck, and in fact getting surrounded by riflemen who are just tearing them apart, forcing them into the retreat once more. And that MG42 isn't really much help either. Could have been moved to the front to sort of help provide fire support. And veterancy 2 for this 242, meaning of course like machine gun on top, which is only going to make it much harder for the riflemen there. One kill by the 242 shell. In the meanwhile, Slaithium is really holding on to the east. Bunker is down as well, might be getting a repair bunker, an MG bunker. Rangers pushing through once more. Tank depot up soon. Tank depot. And the Stu 42 advancing. Might be the end of that machine gun emplacement. There we go. 1/3 away. Rifleman moving in, forcing the Stu 42 to pull back. No anti-tank guns to actually deal with the Stu 42. Still no medic stations for the Americans. Looks like this MG42 is still there. Rangers moving in and hitting a mine. Good job there. Mine's always nice to have. Rangers taking up positions here. Not entirely sure what they're hoping to do. Although they might be able to spot a bit, calling in some artillery. Where though will the artillery land? Right there on that MG bunker. Killing a few false grenadiers and MG team members. Rangers though are forced to retreat, or were they killed? Apparently they were. That was a rather unfortunate move. They did manage to kill that MG team, but that's it. And at the loss of a Ranger team, I do not say that was good. Riflemen though killing a few grenadiers with a grenade. And running straight into MG fire, getting killed and forced to retreat once more. And another rifleman assault right into the line of fire of the MG42. That was pretty poor. Stu 42 cleared up by an airdropped anti-tank gun, meaning Motofox has gone for the airborne doctrine. So jolly good there, having to slightly manage to stabilize the situation, but the machine gun emplacement is lost and there's absolutely nothing to hold back those stormtroopers. No machine guns or infantry nearby. That's going to hurt. And riflemen and rangers constantly moving out, but in piecemeal teams rather than sort of larger offensive maneuver. Another artillery barrage called in now on the MG in the trench. Will they be able to get out there in time? Yes, indeed. Although 2 are killed by a direct hit. And the trench takes quite a beating, but that is it. Stormtroopers forced into retreat. Second Stu 42 arriving. Airborne arriving as well, but no real attempts at pushing onwards. Anti-tank gun apparently has been cleared out. Looks like Vexial's forces are counter-attacking for the far land going off, and this central victory point has once more gone into the hands of the Americans. Grenade going off, killing a few grenadiers. Bit of heavy losses there. Mortar rounds flying in. The German mortars really doing quite nicely, making sure this entire eastern area is going to be very hard to actually do anything in. And an engineer hit by a mortar round, but no MG42s who now hold the front. And looks like there's a mine, and the Rangers hit it, taking quite a bit of damage. Stu 42 holding the left, but that is about it. And another mine is hit. The Rangers are taking absolutely heavy losses, doing their best, charging in, grenade into the trench, but a grenade thrown at them as well. And these grenadiers and false grenadiers are forced into a full retreat, but there's absolutely nothing to actually follow up on that, so that's going to be a definite victory for Mr. Vexial. In fact, I do believe it's time for a mid-game analysis and a changing of the watch. So, what is the current situation? Well, currently, the Americans seem to have taken all 3 victory points, but that is about it. But they don't really have the manpower to hold the other 2. Only the one in the north, and that might soon change as another stormtrooper assault moves in with the Stu 42 in support. Although another machine gun emplacement is up, and some American infantry as well. But really, the Americans are bleeding a bit, and they don't really have any support units really support an offensive. They don't have mortars, and the artillery is having a bit of difficulty actually keeping up the pressure on these defensive bunkers, which of course means they are much more reinforced. And even more sadly, there are no medic stations to actually sort of, pull up some of all the wounded and decrease the attrition by quite a bit. Would have helped both players if they had some. Would make sure they had a lot more infantry in the long run, and of course allow them much quicker to, for example, get a tank depot, to get some armor, to punch the snot out of the 2nd Panzer Division. For the Germans, on the other hand, they need to secure the 3 victory points. They need to establish a sort of forward defensive line perhaps here. And they also need to, of course, secure this point, and perhaps this point. If they can break through, I do believe they might actually be able to hold them indefinitely, ensuring the Americans really can't counterattack, because again, they lack that sort of ability to really attack. They lack the support weapons and the real infantry to really push through. And with the Stu 42 and stormtroopers, for example, holding in the west here, it could be really difficult. And of course, here in the east, we are seeing lots of infantry and machine guns and mortars. So rather nice there. In fact, let's get on with it. Looks like Vexial is floating an incredible amount of manpower and fuel. There we go, getting some Stuks. No, he is cancelling it. Apparently he has better ideas. No, he's going for armoured cars. Calling around his Ausklärungsabteilung to provide some support. Although he could have gone for the Panzer command and gotten some Panzer force on the field, but also a bit of help. Stormtroopers once more getting pinned down in front of the MG emplacement. Not entirely sure why he insists on this rather curious measure. M8 moving in to provide some fire support as well. Anti-tank are nearby, but no real support. Stormtroopers getting torn apart by heavy fire. Hoping to knock out the machine gun emplacement. A grenade might flow into them. There we go. Stormtroopers exposed. And taking heavy losses. One team is down to only 1 man. In the east, though, we are seeing engineers pushing through with flamethrowers in hand. Getting past the MG that is left. And what is this? We're also seeing Nebelwerfers up. Grenadiers getting ready from the medic bunker. And apparently the engineers do manage to force the MG-42 out. With veterans 2 gains lead down, I mean of course it's more susceptible to flames. But there's nothing to really follow up. There we go. 3 rifleman teams and a Sherman. If he really pushes through here, he could do quite nicely. Mortar rounds hitting the Grenadiers. We are seeing numerous packs though, so that might mean it become very difficult for the Sherman. Puma nearby. But really he needs to get some push movements on. He needs to get that Sherman somewhere, perhaps in the west instead. And Nebelwerfer fire flying in, grenades as well. Riflemen taking absolutely extreme losses in seconds. Oh goodness gracious, but Grenadiers as well. Heavy losses on all sides, but I do believe it's most unpleasant for the Americans. The Germans still have forces nearby ready to hold. And of course reinforced. Ding dong, the blob is dead. Yes indeed. Stu 42 taking quite a bit of fire. Getting hit from the rear by recoilless rifle fire. Good job there. Engine is damaged, making it very hard to get out of there. Stormtroopers moving in to perhaps try and support. And looks like a bomb grenade is going to fly at those airborne, but the airborne are faster. And they continue the hunt for the Stu 42. The Sherman is not doing much. I would at least recommend he perhaps move over to sort of help his friend Motofox in the west. Perhaps force a breakthrough there, instead of constantly trying to crash his head into the strong point of the Germans right here. Puma's acting as sort of advanced guard. Not entirely sure that's a good idea. Then again, there's only a Sherman to oppose them, and that they can easily outrun that. Stormtroopers advancing, coming on a bit of fire. Riflemen moving in, might take care of that pack. All the Stormtroopers might take care of the riflemen first. Bomb grenade flying to high again. Wait until the troop has finished moving, or throw it in their path. Do not throw it at them. And Stu 42 moving in, doing quite a bit of damage to these riflemen. Grenade flying off at the stormtroopers, killing 2. Rather unfortunate. The 17th SS though continues to work in support with the 2nd Panzer Division. And a Flak 88 is up for Vexial. He'll provide some really heavy firepower. Having apparently managed to call upon a Luftwaffe Flak Abteilung to provide some heavier firepower. And a grenadier team killed by those Stars-City riflemen moving in from the north, but they themselves are taking quite a bit of fire from the Pumas. The Sherman right here and American assault has apparently stalled down and is now getting hit by never fire, which is rather going to make things even more difficult. Heavy losses for grenadiers and Volksgrenadiers by the riflemen, but they are forced back themselves by the Pumas. The pack standing right nearby, and the American Sherman now moves in. Although these suppressed and pinned troops in support, that's not really a good assault. Will there be any artillery to actually help them? Which I would expect is a bit of a requisite, since you must imagine there's going to be packs waiting for him. In particular, since he knows that his opponent does have packs, and there we go. First shot goes off at the frontal arm of the Sherman. The Sherman is forced to retreat. In the center, Volksgrenadiers trying to take some points here are coming under fire from airborne. The airborne themselves are coming under fire from the Flak 88. Blasting away and grenades flying at the Volksgrenadiers, killing 2, my goodness, and the airborne continue ignoring the Flak 88 fire. Will that be their mistake? Volksgrenadier team almost down, and looks like the last one will get away by the power of the fatherland. No, he did not. Killed by those evil airborne. Sherman hanging about but not really managing much, and they are not securing this victory point. Slaithium seems a bit quiet. Apparently he's moving his stormtroopers towards the east to perhaps push through there, having felt that perhaps the west is not for him. Airborne coming under fire from the Stu 42. This building has apparently become abandoned. No one wants to be there. Perhaps it smells of Volksgrenadiers, who knows. Tank ready nearby, but no real support for it, although it looks like another might be on the way. Then again, some artillery might be of better help. Looks like Motofox is getting his own armor. Yes, indeed. But of course the entire western area is covered by that Flak 88, and something will be needed to clear out that first before it's safe for the Shermans to move in, lest they be blown to bits. And this one is taking heavy Panzer fire. Firing back so far, only 1 kill though, not the best usage of the Sherman so far. Another shot misses. Panzer continues to fly at it. Finally managing another kill, and oh dear, it's turning around. Exposing the rear armor, that's not going to help. Panzer shots missed though, that's rather fortunate. And in the center we are seeing grenadiers and riflemen clashing. Stu 42 doing what it can now with armored skirts, meaning it's certainly going to be much harder to damage with bazookas and sticky bombs, making man's efforts against it very difficult. Troops out in the open and they're getting absolutely torn apart. My goodness, why is he continuing this assault? This is rather foolhardy, and we are hearing a strafing run moving in somewhere, but where I do not know. There's lots of Shermans all upgunned, but nothing for them to really deal with. Except for that Stu 42, but then again that is near that Flak 88. They're going to have a much easier time holding up against those Shermans. And the Stu 42 will protect against any infantry assault. Storms was forced into retreat. Airborne charging ahead, apparently ignoring the Stu 42. Their course set straight for the Flak 88. You're probably seeing a satchel charge then. And Airborne taking quite a bit of fire from all sides, down to 4 men. Will the satchel charge fly? There we go, and they will need to retreat rather swiftly. No, the entire airborne team is lost. The Flak 88 is decrewed, and now really is the time for the American armor to charge in. But a Tiger Veterancy 3 is in. Slaithium has called upon some heavy armor assets. which is really throwing a spanner into the American works. What should have been an assault is now a defense, as the Tiger threatens to put a stop to it all. Taking quite a bit of fire, but the frontal armor is able to absorb most of the fire. Although still not looking good. In fact, it's taking an awful lot of fire from all sides. Flak 88, number 2 seems to be up. Providing covering fire for that. Tiger and the American armor will have to get out of there before they are knocked out. Hellcat trying to flank, but it is singled out by the Tiger and knocked out. Sherman doing its best, but the Flak 88 might be the end of it, or the Tiger will. And there we go, Sherman lost. That was rather unfortunate. Sherman number 2 goes in after that. Stu 42, but comes under fire from the recruit Flak 88. They were simply not fast enough to clear out that area and attack it. And now it is simply too late. Bombing run was apparently heard somewhere, or strafing run, I cannot say. Tiger receiving repairs. Americans have still not regained any of the other victory points, so currently the advantage is in the hands of the Wehrmacht, who has been able to dig in rather properly, rather stopping the American advance with a hobnail jackboot rather solidly. And let's go have a look at Slaithium. In fact, Tiger already on the field, Stormtroopers and Stu 42 ready to support. Tiger, though, is going to be needing quite a lot of repairs before it is ready to face any American armor. And a registered artillery barrage stops another American assault dead in its tracks. And the Stu 42 holds the west. Stormtroopers apparently ready once more to move out. No assault rifles for them, though. Another Stu 42 moving out. And no armor for Vexial. Instead relying on the armored cars and the grenadiers, and apparently Slaithium's Tiger, which is taking quite a bit of damage. Artillery fire, gunfire, sticky bombs, bazookas, you name it, but it is still there. The Tiger still stands. Pride of the fatherland, solid German engineering. It looks like these riflemen are getting absolutely torn apart. Sticky bomb goes off on the frontal armor. And the Tiger survives it, although the engine is destroyed. Tracks are out, engine is out, but the gun still stands, and so does the Tiger. Although I would not like to be that crew, though it's probably going to be very uncomfortable in there at the moment, with everything on fire and blown bits everywhere. Nebelwerfer for Flak 88 and everything else providing quite a bit of support right behind it, though. Pioneers moving forwards once more to repair it, while a large American assault is getting ready, perhaps on a trip to knock out the Tiger. And looks like Motofox is rather depleted, barely anything left, only some support units and engineers, a bit of infantry, but that is it. Still no medic station up for the Americans. Not entirely sure why they aren't getting any of that. Again, would really have been of help in the long run. And we do see a small lull in the fighting. So let us see what the Americans will do once more. A large infantry assault without any support. I'm surprised he keeps continuing that approach, despite the fact that he must by now have sort of realized that, hey, it doesn't really seem to be doing an awful lot for me in the long run. Artillery, though, flying in, knocking out this advanced position, forcing Vexial's veterans, the 3 grenadiers, out. Registered artillery, though, stopping the American assault. So artillery from both sides hitting that specific tiny point, and the sandbags are immediately ground into the dirt. Immediate recycling, if you will, and a large Ranger assault force moves in, bazookas and everything right at the Tiger. Oh dear, oh dear. Pumas nearby as well, MG-42s tearing through all of this. Tiger eliminates the first Ranger team and the Stu-42 as well. These Rangers in their assault have absolutely getting torn apart. My goodness, this is absolutely a massacre. Tiger's main gun is destroyed, but it still stands. It still stands, and I'm not entirely sure what's more retarded. And I'm not saying that's retarded. I'd say more perhaps that infantry assault, like over open ground against a heavily fortified German position, is what is retarded. But let's not use such language. It is not suitable for officers. Looks like we are seeing some riflemen hanging about nearby. The Motofox not really having much luck. His force is getting torn to bits. Again, no support for them, despite the fact that he could get some mortars and perhaps push through. But no, mortars are apparently too good for the Americans. Well, they are not good enough. Howards are now on the way. Tiger still stands, getting repaired, and looks like a repair bunker is on the way there, in fact. Although the mechanics are quick to service the Pumas. Stu-42 heavily damaged though. Bits of armored skirts are off. The engine is on fire. The treads are gone, but it still stands as well. 28 kills so far, and stormtroopers holding the frontal line. Now with assault rifles apparently, or at least some are getting equipped. Looks like the airborne are throwing a grenade at the stormtroopers with veterancy free. Rather tough stormtroopers. Nebula fire wrecking these riflemen. Oh dear. It looks like a large stormtrooper assault is on the move. Assault rifles for everyone. They're able to put on quite a lot of pressure there. We'll be doing some nasty things to the Americans, I wager. There we go. The 17th SS getting its vengeance with the help of the 2nd Panzer Division. Observation post, rather observed by the stormtroopers and getting knocked out. Lining out the American forces and airborne holding in the line here, but grenadiers are marching in. Veterancy free, infantry for both German forces. Riflemen holding the line, but they're getting surrounded. Oh dear, they're on the wrong side. Grenades flying in amongst them. Heavy losses for the riflemen. Rangers now moving in against the stormtroopers, the grenadiers I mean. And some grenadiers are getting suppressed. But the Puma now moves in, and these Rangers are taking absolutely heavy fire, getting devastated by all of these troops. The Grenadiers apparently with the BAR doing quite a lot of damage. And Airborne providing covering fire all the time, but doing absolutely nothing with it. Grenadiers though forced to retreat, and the Puma just continues having fun with its autocannon. Tiger is ready once more. Tiger-Gruppe sind gefechtsbereit. Well, Tiger-Gruppe. And looks like some Motofox troops are moving towards the west. Though what he is intending, I'm not sure. He could move through here and here, cutting off German resources a bit there, forcing them into a slightly unfortunate situation. And looks like we're seeing a lot of howitzers up now for Man. Apparently now hoping to bombard his opponents into submission. Although this seems to be hitting absolutely nothing. And yes, indeed, the artillery, in a magnificent display of firepower, hits absolutely nothing. Riflemen pushing through in the west, but they are getting absolutely bombarded by grenades. Some of the stormtroopers, in fact, using assault. Not looking good for the riflemen. Assault rifles and everything, and assault grenades. They're getting absolutely torn to bits. Airborne team torn apart by the stormtroopers, and riflemen do not look like they will be surviving either. But there we go, retreating the last few riflemen from this absolutely devastating horde of German stormtroopers. American artillery flying in here, doing a bit of damage to this MG bunker and the mortar team nearby. Stu-42, they're awfully in the line of fire, being repaired. Looks like Man is getting ready for another assault. Anti-tank gun moving about here in the west. Stormtroopers getting stopped by the machine gun emplacement, and flamethrowers being moved forward to deal with the stormtroopers while they are down. Grenades still thrown at the engineers, killing two right away. That's rather unfortunate. And now forced to retreat while the Tiger moves in or not. And looks like artillery is flying once more.
cannot blitz our resources.
Apparently at the German positions as well, the Nebelwerfer moving in and scorching the howitzers. Now the howitzers fire in response, but the Nebelwerfer is already on the move. Apparently it could be ignoring it. Yes, indeed, it's going instead for this machine gun bunker, but hitting the nearby railway instead. There we go, bunker is out. And now flying straight into this defensive line. Looks like this Flag 88 might be cleared out by all of this howitzer fire. Blitzkrieg up for Slaithium's armor. And looks like an MG42 team was knocked out. Stu 42 blasting away, Tiger soon joining in. Barn is collapsed, removing the forward barracks and the MG in it. Anti-tank gun fires away at the Stu 42. Tiger and second Stu 42 moving in, might clear out that anti-tank gun very soon. There we go, anti-tank gun is cleared out in the east. Pumas and Grenadiers find out with the riflemen and Rangers. Looks like the Grenadiers do have the upper hand, flying grenades at the Rangers, killing one and doing a bit of damage, but that seems to be it. The Rangers continue to focus down these Pumas, hoping to knock them out, while they are themselves getting focused down by the Grenadiers. And looks like Mr. Slaithium has pushed through in the west. The American defenses there have finally utterly collapsed. Riflemen trying to salvage the situation, but they're getting absolutely devastated by the Tiger and Stormtroopers and the Stu 42s. Artillery fire knocking out one of the Pumas. Knocking out the building. That seems to be it, but all 3 victory points are now in the hands of the 2nd Panzer Division. And a hiccup. And GG. Good comeback, very polite, good sportsmanship there. And complaining about the Tiger. They did make some good efforts, but that Tiger Ranger sort I mean was a bit foolhardy. No Tiger kill for you. Good job, good job. So I do believe this game is more or less over. Next time I'll push up a Pershing. I spam repairs. Yada yada. Let's in fact speed up the last so that there'll be anything major going on. Will. Direct assault on the American base. Number 1. Stormtroopers moving through here, but they'll run straight into that machine gun emplacement and probably get suppressed. And AI has taken over for Motofox. Lots of Stormtroopers in fact moving in. We're seeing a bit of protection from suppression due to Blitzkrieg. There we go. Game over for the Americans. The 2nd Armored Division has lost to the 2nd Panzer Division, which did receive support from the 17th SS. Rather nice scene right here. So, what can we learn from this? Well, we saw some rather good aggression from the Americans in the start, but they weren't really able to consolidate, and they didn't actually get any mines either, which was a bit interesting. Instead, they kept pushing on a bit too far, I feel, instead of consolidating their gains, while in the west there was a sort of lack of effort. And from Slaithium, well, he was also a bit too passive in the start, which certainly gave the Americans an early advantage. But he was able to turn that around with Stormtroopers and Stu 42s, for which the Americans apparently weren't prepared. They didn't really get any anti-tank gun for quite some time, or any anti-tank infantry, despite the fact that he was airborne. That rather worked against him. Not entirely sure I liked Slaithium constantly attacking that machine gun emplacement from the front instead of cloaking his troops and perhaps moving up behind it. That is his decision, but lack of support weapons when man continue attack Vexial's position was absolutely terrible. He should have gotten mortars or some more artillery, or at least attack from somewhere else instead of constantly running his head into a wall. And he really should have gotten some medic stations. Both of the Americans could have gotten some medic stations. It really could have helped them in the long run, I feel. Instead, they just threw their men away in constant human wave attacks and got ground down. And they weren't really able to really exploit any chances, which also rather lost them their armor. So good game to the German commanders, who also got a medic bunker up. But again, don't be passive. Be aggressive, try to push your advantage. And of course later our mines, they can really make advantage. So there we go. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed this fight. If you did, why not subscribe and tell your friends? And if you didn't, well, why not send a replay of your own? This is Imperial Dancing. Medic bunkers and medic stations are very, very nice. Cheers.